both pretty similar.
We have on the right David Teeter playing a Stoneforge Mystic. Looks to be blue-white Stoneforge. Stoneblade with one Vidalcan Shackles in his main deck.
Ooh la la.
So a little bit of spice there. But, you know, otherwise pretty standard. He's got also a single Riptide Lab and a couple of Geist of St. Traff. So that card occasionally pops up in Legacy and pretty strong.
David's list actually, he has a Riptide Lab, 4 Wastelands, and 2 Mishra's Factories. He's got so many utility lands. That's a really high number for that archetype. Plus the token Caracas as well. He's definitely in there on the non-basics. My list, Jacob Hollon. He's playing Esper Stoneblade, and he is a little less adventurous. His only utility land is Academy Runes and Swamp, which I'll count. He's got access to the typical Disruption package and Lingering Souls. He's got 3 copies of Lingering Souls, a Vindicate, 2 Thoughtseize, 2 Inquisition Kozilek. Pretty common split. They're kind of a difference maker in the matchup, to be sure. Moving to sideboard, he actually has access to Geist of St. Traff as well, 3 copies in the board. So post-board, that's an even, if not even an advantage for Jacob Hollon, whereas in Game 1, I imagine it put David Teeter a little farther ahead.
Yeah, I think we'll see a Disenchant or 2 coming in from each of these players' sideboards, just to deal with the equipment on the other end. Really, you know, when this deck was in Standard, you sort of fought battles over different types of cards, and they ranged from more or less important than the other cards. Both these decks have Stoneforge Mystic. On David's side, we also have Jace and Vidalcan Shackles. So Stoneforge Mystic advantage is big. If David has Vidalcan Shackles, he can invalidate a lot of cards from Jacob. So we'll see how it plays out. And this discard spell, as Glenn mentioned, the discard spells from Jacob really being big because there's some low-cost key cards to this matchup.
David's Force of Willing on turn 1. The Inquisition. Interestingly, how do you like Force of Will in these Stoneblade mirrors? I admit to not being a well-versed Stoneblade master, but it seems like when I know the matchup's going to be like pretty grindy and long, I'm not huge on those cards, but at the same time, you know, there are early cards you really want to counter sometimes.
I like having a couple. I've actually played Stoneblade quite a bit. You know, I like having a couple, but it does get very grindy, and you are fighting battles over specific types of cards that usually you want to be answering with a more efficient card than Force of Will. You don't really want to lose those 2 cards in this kind of matchup.
This is a little bit of a dagger. David fought that turn 1 Force of Will versus Inquisition of Kozilek to protect his 1 Stoneforge Mystic in his hand, and then he drew a second one, automatically becoming invulnerable to hand disruption. But it became basically the same since Jacob had a second disruption spell.
Yeah, I actually am not a huge fan of taking that Stoneforge Mystic there. I would have preferred to take the Jite and then try to deal with potentially whatever other equipment the Stoneforge Mystic fetches up. One advantage that Esper Stoneblade has with its discard spells, and this also came up in Standard when the deck was splashing black, Stoneforge comes down. Maybe it's too early for you to do anything about it, but you've got that discard, you hit the equipment.
True.
So, you know, they've got a 1/2, not really that scary. Now, David has a Stoneforge and 2 equipments in hand. So any single discard spell that Jacob has now, only going to get one of those, the Stoneforge is going to be able to put the other one into play.
Yeah.
You can invalidate those Stoneforge Mystics by just fighting the equipment instead of the 1/2.
It's also true. I imagine that Jacob, after seeing his turn 1 Inquisition Forced, thought that David was going to be vulnerable to just the Thoughtseize this turn. He didn't know, obviously, that David had drawn a second copy of Stoneforge Mystic, basically doubling down on his hand and making it much better.
Yep, and we see Stoneforge Mystic here from Jacob.
I believe Jacob had the Stoneforge Mystic in hand last turn also, if I was watching, and I think I might have just gone for that instead of the Thoughtseize. For not only the reasons you mentioned, like it's okay to just play a disruption spell post Stoneforge Mystic. You don't have to necessarily preempt it. But also because I feel like it's really unlikely David would have kept in days on the draw.
Yeah, and you know, if he had days, he didn't have days to counter that Inquisition, but I agree. Not a fan of keeping days in on the draw. I probably would have run the Stoneforge Mystic out, tried to get it online earlier, and I would have been fine using the discard spell on whatever he got with the Stoneforge. But this is the line of play he's chosen, and we'll see how it works out. We see a Brainstorm, Riptide Lab, a Jite, and
the sword.
Sort of, I believe it was Feast and Famine that he fetched up, right?
So David predictably plays a land and passes. Jacob, he drew a Geist-Sustained Trap, but he just rolled up. There is another Stoneforge Mystic, plus the equipment he's searched up already. And I think I even see a Disenchant. I'm not 100% on that, but we might be disenchanting. He's gonna go get aggressive.
So that could definitely be a reason why he didn't go for those equipment with his discard spells. If he had a disenchant, he might be looking for a little bit of a mid-combat blowout, taking care of that equipment.
Gains a lot of tempo. David brainstorming into very much the wrong cards against Geist-Sustained Trap. Land, disenchant, Swords to Plowshares.
Yeah, so he may want a disenchant against the Stoneforge Mystic of Jacob, but we'll see how he goes. This Geist could be really problematic.
I'm curious if he'll take this opportunity to Sword Stoneforge Mystic on his turn or not. I imagine he's going to drop the sword, untap, equip the Stoneforge Mystic, and swing for sure. I feel like swordsing the Mystic that's in play might be fine in that situation.
Yeah, we'll see how he chooses to use his mana. He's gonna...
Jite, whoa. Okay, I feel like I would go for sword.
Yeah, the problem with... Oh, where did the sword...
I believe it's the second card down in the Brainstorm.
Okay.
Yeah.
The slightly awkward thing about Jite here is that he can't really equip an attack where that 2/2 Geist is just going to get in the way.
Yeah.
The Jite will get 2 counters, but it won't be able to target the Geist with the -1/-1 ability. And having a Jite with 2 counters facing down Geist of Saint Traft, not where you want to be.
Not impressive at all. Yeah, I think we really needed the Sword of Feast and Famine to try and connect with that this turn. Like, if we're equipping Jite, if it's sword, we equip it, swords the Stoneforge Mystic out of the way and attack. Jacob's in a tough spot, and it's not a spot where he can realistically block. He just has to give us that trigger. We untap all our lands, still have Disenchant available for whatever Jacob tries on his turn.
Yeah, so David's put himself in a bit of a tough spot here. Has some good cards, but just equips that Jite and passes. And we'll see Jacob. It looks like drew another Geist.
Easy game.
I think I saw that, and second Stoneforge in hand as well. Jacob has a lot of great tools for this matchup. I think
he has a Lingering Souls also. I believe that's his 4th card. Oh, 3rd from the right, I should say.
Okay.
There it is, yep.
We do see a Lingering Souls.
Yeah, I like Jacob's position. He's got all action and enough lands to cast his action. Perfect.
Yeah. And, important cards in this matchup too. Lingering Souls, another Stoneforge Mystic to fetch up another equipment. He already has an equipment to put in play with that Stoneforge Mystic. And that backup Geist. See Angel come in, and this is going to be a pretty quick clock if David can't come up with something.
It's gonna, unless you're gonna Swords as a healing salve effectively here. I guess I should say, I'll give it credit, Life Burst. Life Burst.
Yeah, for both players.
Yeah, a friendly Life Burst.
A Life Rift, maybe?
Life Rift. I like that.
You got it. Viewers at home may know what card I'm talking about. Maybe not. Sword of Feast and Famine.
And we can't even play and equip that this turn, whereas we could have done that with Jite. I think we really missequenced on which equipment we wanted to get onto our Stoneforge Mystic first.
Yeah, Stoneforge Mystic, another one of those cards that on the surface, when you watch someone use it, seems pretty simple. Play it, get the equipment, put the equipment into play. It's a very skill-intensive card. Knowing when to put that equipment into play, when to equip an attack, when to leave it back. There's a lot of edges to be gained by using that card, effectively getting the most out of it.
World's most complicated Squire.
Yep. Except Tarmogoyf.
Does he even
That
count?
guy keeps changing. He's an occasional squire. He's sometimes squire. And
world's most infrequent squire, perhaps, for Tarmogoyf.
yeah, rarely squire. Sword down for Geist.
I think Jacob might smell the disenchant here. David was a little, paused, fiddled his lands a little when the sword came down in the end step. Has to give that some credibility.
Yeah.
He's going to go for it.
I think he probably feels like he's fine with that disenchant coming out.
Yeah.
Not too worried. And it does.
Gotta disenchant something after all. We drew Jace for turn on Jacob's end. So really he just wants a 4th land to start crushing. He's already putting David in a pretty tight spot on the clock. I imagine David will try and go defensive next turn, blocking with Stoneforge Mystic.
Yeah, this is just a pretty convoluted way to get a blocker that's bigger than that Geist. When if the sword was down on the Mystic, it would outclass the Geist on its own.
He drew a Stoneforge Mystic, so he no longer has to go with that plan. He can just attack, play Stoneforge Mystic, move the equipment.
Okay.
So that's reasonable.
Yeah, a little bit of a better position for David.
He'll get completely annihilated if Jacob has any swords, however.
Yeah.
It's pretty dangerous.
And
Jacob decides to soak some counters with his Mystic.
Some Mystic blocking there.
I
Two
think
counters get added.
He's doing
combat
it that
damage,
way
then
as well.
-1.
Yep, he's playing around the swords in that fashion.
Yeah, so a nice Jete play there by David. Choosing to let combat damage resolve, add those counters, then use the -1 ability to finish off the Mystic instead of using the +2/+2 ability before combat damage. Second Stoneforge Mystic comes down, and is he going to find anything? We looked through once.
I thought I just saw him pass Batterskull.
He may...
Did he side it out? Well, I thought I saw it, but I could be wrong. Could have seen something else.
Both players have Batterskull on their deck list, as expected, so that's a little confusing. And we'll see. Stoneforge Mystic still, relevant as a body to hold that Jete, hold off the Geist. But David down to just 6, which is effectively a little more with those Jete counters, but not that much more. See what Jacob has, and looks like a Snapcaster Mage drawn by Jacob. And actually this Jete is kind of looking to take over the game a little bit now that it has a decent number of counters.
I think that's mostly because David's gotten fortunate in that Jacob doesn't have a 4th land to play 2 cards a turn and outrace it, and also just happens to not have drawn, like a swords or been able to play Jason bounce it or anything like that.
Yeah. This Lingering Soul's not matching up favorably to Jete at all.
I think it actually works out fine if we can force David into the position where he's on mono blocking. But as long as he can keep attacking, we're in trouble.
It's true. He does have 2 creatures, though, so he can get in with one and then move it to the other Mystic like we saw last turn. I mean, Lingering Soul's not the worst card against Jete, but not exactly an answer. So choice from David here.
Yeah, another land will now let him actually sort of Feast and Famine and equip and attack, but he's not going to do that.
Yeah, looks
That's fair.
Like probably going to accept that block, get a couple more counters, and he can move the Jete over to the Stoneforge and then use the Stoneforge end of turn.
I feel like I would have preferred to play sort of Feast and Famine. If it resolves, then go ahead and equip, kill off the spirits with Jete counters, and attack.
Huh.
And that way the Geist either has to block or he has to let you get in a real big hit with sword. You're untapping, you're moving the Jete back over, it's still got a ton of counters on it. Either way, he's in bad shape.
Yeah, an aggressive line, but one that would have capitalized on the fact that Jacob has been missing land drops and a little choked in that way. And we might see a Jace coming down here.
Curious why we didn't move our Jete over after attacking last turn. Do we just no longer fear death?
He may be, well, not sure. Even moving, he could have kept up mana to activate the Stoneforge Mystic and
to cast
swords. swords. So
I think that's
agree,
just
that's
an
a little
oversight.
confusing. Jace down with 3. Jacob considering whether he wants to brainstorm or go ahead and bounce one of those mystics. And
keep in mind, Jacob should know that David has the sword in his hand. No shuffling's been going on, so it's there.
we see that sword come down.
We're gonna attack for 7.
Yeah, and this is more life than Jacob has, or sorry, more life than David has, but David does have those 5 counters on Jitte and swords to plowshares in his hand, so not too much danger.
Looks like he's
Gains a
gonna gain
couple
2
life.
and kill the spirit,
Yeah,
which is correct, I think.
and we might see well, it depends on what happens this turn. We might see a large attack from David, but that could leave him pretty vulnerable. He does draw a daze, so he did have those in.
Interesting.
And attacking Jace,
And pumping in order to
Yep.
get the Jitte counter.
finish it off,
Oh, and we're
and not adding Jitte counters.
we're not adding Jitte counters. That's a bad trigger to miss here, man.
Oh. And maybe moving one of these equipments. Time running pretty low in this round, so David may be feeling the nerves a little bit,
Sure, pressure.
being under camera and being pretty low on time. Mystic here with a Jitte on it. David considering something and then moving along.
I think he may have had in his head that Jitte says something like when it deals combat damage to a creature or player, and then just now thought to double check that. That's a common misconception I've seen from players.
Yeah, definitely a possibility. Wouldn't surprise me. We see Jitte come out for Jacob,
Yep.
and just bad news for David here.
This is another one of the reasons why I really like pressuring with the Sword of Feast and Famine early, as Jacob tried to do, because there's always the possibility you just lose the Jitte, and 2 life is sweet, but that's not really what you're in business for.
Yeah, there were a few times in this game when David could have gone a little more aggressive and maybe capitalized better on the fact that Jacob was missing land drops and only able to cast 1 spell a turn. But this is how it's played out, and I think we are going to see that Jitte cast. Yep, and the daze from David.
Big game.
Yep.
Jacob probably not expecting that to happen, but it did. It so did.
Yeah, rarely effective, but in this case it was the late game daze. We see, wow, shackles drawn from David. So pretty good. Has 2 islands. I mean, he can take the Mystic. If he gets a 4th island, he can take Angel tokens as they come in to prevent them from dealing damage.
Sure.
But David not out of it yet.
Will he get to keep the Angel tokens? I imagine he will, right? Geist only exiles the ones you control. So once they switch sides, I imagine that's game.
Not sure quite how that ruling works, but I could see it going the way you're describing.
I imagine it's something like that. I'm not sure.
I believe, yeah, he'll need
Does the
another
Angel-
island for that. So
Curious.
won't come up for just a second, but if it does, we'll want to know how that works.
It doesn't work? We're getting a confirmation that Geist is not worded in that way, which is a shame because it would have been sweet.
Just producing a bunch of angels for David to take and use however he wants.
He's going to take the Mystic. A fine choice.
Yep. So David with 2 Stoneforge Mystics of his own, 1 of Jacob's, an Umezawa's Jitte with 2 counters, Sword of Feast and Famine, bunch of lands, including a Riptide Laboratory, against Jacob with 4 lands, 1 of which is a Wasteland, and a Geist of St. Taft. But the important thing, Jacob at 17, David at 2.
I'm not gonna lie, Ben, this sort of Feast and Famine is frustrating me. It's been unequipped for so long.
It has been
So
sitting there.
long.
So
Oh,
attacks, adds counters this time, going up to 4. I believe that attack dropped dropped Jacob to 16. If the life totals hadn't been updated yet, possibly 17. Die there, I believe, indicating that this is now turn 1.
Jacob is turn 1 of turns. I think that we're probably looking at a draw. It's going to be close. But I think Jacob can stave off death, and I don't think he can get in for lethal. David was able to just barely ride that Jitte all the way home.
Well, home to either a win or a draw, or
sure,
maybe maybe if we see something really crazy. Okay, Angel and Geist coming in.
Bunch of life.
Huh. Looks like life totals are changing, but I don't think blockers have been declared or not yet. They both go on Geist.
Predictable.
6 life gained by that Jitte, 4 taken from the Angel. David goes to, I believe, what is going to be 4.
I think he may have been the wrong Stoneforge Mystic there. I assume he did.
Choosing. Yeah, looks like the Stoneforge Mystic taken by the Shackles
was erroneously put in David's graveyard.
Yeah, not sure what the intent was there.
We can just let our judge there. I'm pretty sure he said, like, kill your Stoneforge Mystic, and David just grabbed one, but obviously being in different sleeves is a factor there. We just want to avoid any discrepancies coming up.
So we're seeing a Geist from Jacob, and then an answer, and a Geist from David. And this is turn 2. So
David will have to do it in 2 attack steps. He's got 3, 4...
5,
it's
6,
basically the same thing because those
7,
counters
8,
won't
9,
matter. So he's got 6, 7, 9. I think he's going to come up just shy.
Yeah, just 1 or 2 points shy. Unless Jacob decides to help him out by giving him a creature that he can shackles.
Yeah, I think David can deal 14 damage based on what we're seeing here. He needs something else to make it actually lethal. So Jacob going to want to not crack that Flooded Strand.
We see a discarded Snapcaster Mage from Jacob. Just waiting it out. Seems to see whether this match is going to end in a draw or a win for David. And he does crack the Flooded Strand. This could be important. How many damage? 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, only 10 that I'm seeing on the other side coming from David. So Jacob drops himself to 11. Should still be safe.
Yep, if our math is right and nothing changes.
Unless he gets ambitious with another fetch land. And we see a hand of
Geist, an excellent chump blocker.
I believe a Polluted Delta also. But we see that come down, and
I imagine we're just going to cast Geist and flashback Lingering Souls, and that's going to cement a draw.
There we see Geist, and 2 mana. I do think we're going to see it at Lingering Souls. Yep. So not sure what David can draw here to get through that extra damage. I'm not seeing anything on the list. Not even a Batterskull, which he doesn't have in his deck anymore because he did not find it with Mystic. It seems that this match will end in a draw.
Yep, Jacob's staring at it. Yep, this is all I can do. Did we get that Stoneforge Mystic resolved? I want to make sure they don't accidentally leave with a 59 card deck. Just double checking.
And players discussing something back and forth. Last turn for David. And
yep, he's like, yeah, I don't got it. Can't get through. At this point, I don't think David could really lose this game, but he can't win it this turn.
Yeah, I don't see Jacob being able to take the game on turn 5. Just too much life gain from the Jitte. And comes in with his guys. We see some blocks and some counters being added.
All right, so if Jacob can add on 8 damage, he's got this in the bag. Oh, and he also has to beat swords.
Yeah. I think David there just realizing that it's likely going to come to a draw, attacking, adding those counters so he has an extra life cushion just so nothing crazy happens.
Jacob taking the fetch land to show off his Altered Tundra. Good value add when you're on the camera match.
Is that a Tundra?
Yeah, I believe it looks like a Tundra to me. Have you ever seen a Tundra before?
Oh,
the snowy wastes of the north.
Well, now I've seen a Tundra.
Jacob's gonna draw, and the game's gonna be over. I really think I like leading with the Sword of Feast and Famine better, as we discussed. I think it would have put Jacob under a lot of pressure really early in this game, and likely ended it a few turns earlier. Obviously, the time discrepancy is just an issue in and of itself. Like, you can solve that in any number of ways. But
yeah, I think both players played a little cautious.
Yep.
And came back to bite both of them, but ends in a draw.
Neither player especially excited about that result.
Yeah, late round draw, not what they were looking for. Both of them hoping to win and be able to draw later in an intentional fashion. So